This is a series of days you really want to pay attention to. We've got severe weather possible today through Tuesday and mention of a severe weather outbreak by the Storm Prediction Center on one of those days. So let's start with today. It's looking pretty active even on this afternoon and this evening's charts because Iowa is the focus of attention today with a level 3 out of 5. Severe weather risk, but the general marginal risk runs from Wisconsin all the way down to the dry line in Texas. Let's take a closer look, though, at Iowa and surrounding areas. There's that level 3 out of 5. So Des Moines, Waterloo, Mason City, Cedar Rapids, all in that threat zone. And then surrounding that is what we would call the slight risk from years past, still called that. That goes all the way down to Kansas and all the way up into Wisconsin. So let's break it down by threat. Now, there is a tornado threat with this. It's the lowest that they issue on 2% within 25 miles. And I will say that this area of Iowa, in particular this area of Iowa, has shown up for days on StormNet and a couple of the other learning machine models as a tornado risk. Now, is it a huge risk? No. But a lot of times in these systems, we only get hail and high winds with this. So the fact that this is even showing up is somewhat significant. If we take a look now at NATOcast for today, it does highlight the exact same area the SPC does. They put it up at a 3% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of any given point. And again, if we look at StormNet, it highlights that same area it's been for days. It's a little more northeast. And you'll note that this is 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. tonight. That's right up here. So this is an after dark situation, and it has been. So just kind of keep an eye on that area here in northeast Iowa, maybe central Iowa for later today. But primarily, though, I think it's going to be a severe hail risk. As you can see here, you've got a 30% chance of a 1-inch hailstone or larger in that area right there, 15% surrounding it. So again, Des Moines, north central, west central Iowa under the main risk. In terms of hail intensity, there are, I think, 3 categories of this. This is the intensity 1 level up here in the left-hand corner, and you can kind of break it down. So we've got, an 83% chance it's going to be somewhere below 2 inches in that striped area right there. So how you read this is the red is the highest probability of any severe hail 1 inch or greater, and if it does occur, this is the likely percentage breakdown of the size. And this is important because usually these two coincide, but what this is saying down here in Kansas, for example, is that the probability of getting hail is lower, but it's going to be just as big intensity-wise. That's one way. That's not one way. That is the way to look at it. Anyway, NATOcast hail risk is maximized just to the northwest of Des Moines for today at a 45% risk of a severe hailstone, and the hatched area is a 10% chance of 2-inch hail or greater. So 2-inch hail is a lot more significant than 1-inch hail. 1-inch hail is the official severe criteria. So that hatched area runs from, around La Crosse, Wisconsin, straight down to Lincoln, Nebraska, Grand Island in that area. So that's another concern. As far as the wind for today, Iowa, again, the epicenter of attention with the wind intensity at its lowest significant level, but still, something to look at for Friday. And then finally, we'll look at CSU for later today. It does put that tornado risk in Iowa, same place, with the hail risk maximized right in northeast Iowa and that wind risk. So this one pretty much backs up everything we just showed you. On the Cape side of things, plenty of unstable air with this. That's not an issue. So if it's yellow, basically it qualifies. Orange is a little more intense. And bulk shear, this is what we look at as meteorologists to determine if supercells can be held together. So it's just it's a way of stacking a thunderstorm so that it doesn't collapse on itself is the fastest way I can explain that. But if bulk shear is anywhere in the blues is probably okay, depending on other conditions like instability, which is fine. Purple is a little better, but that entire state of Iowa is basically in the zone. Even southern Iowa, that looks a little marginal. This is model data, so it's something to be watched. And in terms of what the radar is forecast to be on the HRRR, we got a smattering of thunderstorms, and I didn't put the time on here. I believe this is I did. I'm sorry, 8 p.m. So that's what it looks like at 8 p.m. So I think any of these could be supercells up here. The more likely hail producers are probably going to be here. And again, if these can survive and move into Iowa, and there's some indications on future scans of this that they will, there could be something that is surface based that would be something that could produce a tornado. You just don't want elevated storms that the tornado potential is almost zero with that. Now for Saturday, we have this again kind of interesting forecast. So the dark green is the marginal risk that stretches from Cincinnati to Des Moines and down along the dry line too, very conditional. But this level 2 is a pretty broad area that runs from northeast Colorado up into Iowa. So again, Iowa, day 2 of a maximum of severe weather potential. And we don't stop there, by the way. Iowa, Nebraska, they're on the charts a lot, as you'll see here in a minute. But this level 2 here has been expanded a little bit from yesterday. It's about the same. Let's break down the risks on this. So the tornado risk, again, is minimal, 2% chance within 25-mile circle. But again, it does include parts of Iowa that were included on the last forecast for Friday, and a larger extent of Nebraska and northern parts of Kansas. This is interesting to me. I'm watching this very carefully. So the best there will be a low pressure area here. So the best low-level winds, turning of the winds in the lower atmosphere is here, but the dew points look very low and it doesn't look as unstable. Here it's more unstable, but the shear is more in question. What is NATO StormNet? I got so many of them now. StormNet does show this area from Grand Island to Omaha, basically including Lincoln, as the highest percentage of a tornado risk on Saturday. And again, this would be 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So this is a dinner to overnight situation. Not even so much overnight, but probably 6 to midnight, somewhere in that time frame. For the hail risk, a 15% chance, not as great as today's, but it is showing up. And then the wind risk is a little more expanded, but again, a 15% risk as well. If we take a look at CSU, the tornado risk on that one is backed all the way up into parts of Colorado, northwest Kansas, and parts of southern Nebraska. So that's interesting to me. This is suggesting that the low-level wind, the turnings of the wind, has favored in the past probably tornadic development, even though the instability and the dew point spreads and things like that are not as great. The dew point spreads out here in the higher elevations are not as important. Anyway, let's go ahead to Sunday. This could be a big day, too. It's not explicitly stated in the SPC Outlook, but it might be in future development here. But this is a level 3. Again, it hits Nebraska, it hits parts of Iowa, but now expands into South Dakota and Minnesota. But the marginal risk goes from the Red River of Oklahoma and Texas all the way up to the Canadian border. So we got a large area here. These are large areas of severe weather. Just because you're not in the bullseye doesn't mean you won't get a severe storm. Also, it doesn't mean because you're in any color that you're guaranteed to get severe weather either. But it's more likely if you're in the level 3, for example. That's what it is. It's a probabilistic outlook for any severe weather. So Sioux Falls, Sioux City, Norfolk, down over almost to North Platte, but certainly Grand Island and Lincoln are in this highest level. But the whole state of Iowa is in the slight risk, and pretty much all of Nebraska too, and a large chunk of Minnesota. Let's take a look at CSU. They have been getting pretty excited about this. So the tornado is actually at 15% there, right along the Missouri River, including Sioux Falls and Sioux City are very close to that, and parts of Minnesota as well. So that's something to keep in mind. The hail risk is maximized basically in that same area, only just a little bit larger than what I just described, and there's a wind risk with that as too. Now on Sunday, the tornado risk is actually shifted on StormNet down into western Iowa again. So that is an interesting development, and that's from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m., so it could be an earlier afternoon event on Sunday for sure. Now, let's go to Monday. This is a 30% chance of any severe weather occurring from northern Oklahoma straight up through Kansas, all the way back into central and even northern Wisconsin. This is significant, and it has been at 30% now for 2 days in a row. That's shifted around a little bit. I did want to show you that the wording in the Storm Prediction Center's outlook for this day does say severe weather outbreak is possible on D4, which is Monday, day 4. So this could be pretty significant on Monday. I wanted to show you the jet stream flow, the EPS 500 millibar for this, because this is why everyone is excited. We have a just kind of a neutrally tilted trough, maybe even a little bit of negative tilt to this. And the upper level winds at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when this is supposed to be valid for, are just now getting into this area of the highest risk. So it does look kind of textbook, actually. The instability, the Cape is nosing right up in there. So, yeah, this is a bad zone on Monday. Again, it's a model forecast. Things could change, but I think somewhere in there something's going to happen, even if it shifts around a little bit between now and Monday. I think there's a pretty high confidence. I checked the GEFS too, and it's pretty much in agreement with the 500 millibar flow. So I don't think much is going to change on that. And look at this, the CSU probabilities. I haven't seen this year so far. In fact, I'm not sure I've seen it ever. I can't say I've looked at it exclusively every day, but 60% chance of some severe weather from central Iowa up into around Eau Claire, Wisconsin, with that hatched area is significant. Meaning we're going on the upper end of tornadoes and hail and wind. Speaking of tornadoes, we can take a look at Mondays on the StormNet. Again, Iowa. This is from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m., so an earlier afternoon event is possible from Des Moines to St. Joe. And that's a pretty high risk. That's up at 50% or a little bit higher. So again, that's something really, really worth watching. And we just need to put the fine pen on where all these things are going to happen. But you can kind of see this general area here, as outlined by the SPC, is going to be spot on. Now, on Tuesday, we move ahead, and the severe weather risk just kind of shifts with the cold front out ahead from central Illinois down to Oklahoma City. And I live in Springfield, so I just wanted to zoom in on that, let you folks know that here's Springfield and Joplin right here. We're right in the core of that on Tuesday. A lot of times on the day after, we're kind of on the back end of it. So in other words, the yellow would like start halfway through the Ozarks and go over here. That's not the case on Tuesday. So I just want to let you know that this might be coinciding with peak heating. So it could be something that we really need to watch on Tuesday. And if you go look at the CSU outlook, they agree with that 30%. They just bring it all the way up into Michigan, whereas the SPC, what we just showed you, is a little more limited. Even on Wednesday, I'll just show you this real quick. There is some severe weather threats in the Northeast and maybe along the dry line in Texas. Take a final look here at the next 3 weeks. So this is a summarization of the supercell composite. They just take each pixel and add it up for a week. So it's very high, of course, in these high threat areas over the next several days. And even Texas is showing up a little higher than maybe the outlooks are even showing. It's a little more conditional down there, basically. And then for the second week, the 22nd through the 28th, way up into the Dakotas, that's starting to look like a June pattern. And then way down in South Texas, too. And on week 3, which takes us into the first 4 days of June, there seems to be a supercell maximum right around Kansas and Oklahoma. Thanks for watching today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. This is published every day after the morning Storm Prediction Center update. Also, remember to check that site off on day 1 because they update it fairly frequently. If you like this video, please like it. Also, you can subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.